from the front lines of the info war.
We see the Earth. You got it. We see the Earth now. You got it. We see the Earth. You got it. We see the Earth now.
We are broadcasting worldwide, blasting out on the AM and FM dial, global shortwave, and, of course, satellite #1 on the internet at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com for online streaming and podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. You have found it, the tip of the spear, the front line in the info war, as we attempt, in some cases with great success, to alert free humanity to the dangers of historical tyranny that is now manifesting itself and coming in like a flood against free peoples all over the world, not just here in the United States. We're going to be live here for the next 2 hours, popping in for a segment or two. At the start of the next hour is Aaron Dykes. Aaron and Darren McBreen, two of our great reporters, just spent the last few days during a big federal martial law takeover drill that included practicing rounding up citizens and putting them in a nearby sports stadium. We'll tell you the cover story the feds had for that one. He'll be popping in at the start of the next hour, also popping in a witness off and on the last week to the demonstrations in and around Wall Street, culminating in people being beat up over the weekend and hundreds being arrested. That is all coming up today with Luke Rudowski joining us and reporting for Infowars.com from New York City, Lower Manhattan. So that is all coming up today. Obviously, we've got an information overload here. And I've not been getting a lot into politics because most of these people are horses owned by the very same stable, owned by the very same operation, the globalists, like a Don King boxing match. But we have a real contender in the arena, in this rigged game, who's not rigged. And so the system is pulling out the stops. Of course, his name is Ron Paul. But I think it's important to just go over a few of the dirty tricks they've run against him and illustrate the fact that even the corporate shill media is admitting that the Tea Party, people who actually are constitutionalists, the Republicans have basically failed to co-opt it. Rick Perry has failed to co-opt it, and the Tea Party is destroying Rick Perry. He came out of the gates and was the front runner instantly because of media anointing him as the leader. But as soon as myself and Ron Paul and others said, did you know he was Al Gore's chief of staff? Did you know he supported Hillary Care? Did you know he went to Bilderberg? Did you know he supports handing over 8,000 miles of Texas roads? Did you know he's for forced inoculation? He has imploded. The problem is we've not completely destroyed him yet. We've also got to take out politically the other Ken doll, who's just as bad or worse, and that's Mitt Twinkle Toes Romney. He is a clone of Rick Perry, except for the fact that he's from Michigan, not from Texas, and he has not attended Bilderberg that we know, and he was not a male cheerleader. Normally, to be a Republican contender, you've got to be a male cheerleader as of late. Rick Perry, of course, is a male cheerleader, like George W. Bush and others. And Trent Lott and the rest of them, part of the Twinkle Toes pillow biting club or whatever they're part of. So that's all coming up. We're going to break this down in Time Magazine, trying to prop him up, the rise of Rick Perry. Remember, I told you Rick Perry was going to run when he pledged he wouldn't. And I told you that all this stuff would come out. That's why he told a Fox News host a year and a half ago that he's scared of Ron Paul and Alex Jones, because he knows we're carrying the data that can bring him down. Same thing on Newt Gingrich, who's not really a contender, but she still needed to discredit him, Mr. Carbon Tax, Mr. Global Government. In fact, guys, will you Google for me? Because I always meant to bring it in here. I actually own the Alvin and Heidi Toffler book that he where he calls for world government. Something like Newt Gingrich called for global government in Toffler book intro. That should get it. He's also called for implanting the entire population with microchips. Don't believe me? Just type in Newt Gingrich microchips. But back to Mitt Romney. He, of course, is, I'll tell you about when we get back, but Mitt Romney's a big carbon tax supporter and the author of Obamacare. Hundreds of nations have fallen to tyranny in the last century alone. This is our last chance to not relive history.
As we're finishing off this agenda, they'll be pulling the rug from underneath Americans at home.
Have tremendous influence on our president and Congress, and they really are calling the shots.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us as American citizens to pay attention.
Fall of the Republic identifies the enemies of our nation, the criminal offshore cartel, hell-bent on destroying sovereignty, and on its ashes constructing world government.
Tim Geithner, Bernanke, they're arsonists. They're asking for more matches. And the Congress is saying, who do we make the check out to?
Today, it seems like nobody does care. And right now in Washington, D.C., we have seen a fall of the Republic.
Get your copy of Fall of the Republic on DVD at Infowars.com or watch it online right now in super high quality at PrisonPlanet.tv.
The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Thank you so much for joining us. It is, of course, Sunday, the 25th day of September 2011. We're going to be live here for the next 2 hours. We're also going to have open phones. I want to get into some of the news, and I'll open the phones up. I want to take your calls throughout the next 2 hours. And we have Aaron Dykes, Infowars.com reporter, with some breaking news joining us at the start of the next hour. We're also going to talk for a few minutes with Luke Rudkowski, who's been inside of those Wall Street demonstrations where there have now been a whole bunch of different arrests taking place. We have the Daily Mail as well as Reuters reporting that the euro has 6 weeks to live if the countries that make up the euro in Europe do not give up all of their sovereignty to a, quote, financial union owned and run by the very same mega banks that sold those governments the worthless derivatives. And they're holding Europe hostage, of course. If Europe gives in and waives what sovereignty it has left, even out of the euro itself, they, of course, will be further imploded, just like the big central banks have done in the third world over and over again. Here in the U.S., of course, the traitors in both parties have transferred power to the new super Congress that controls the power of the purse, an unprecedented event that's gotten almost no news coverage. We live in incredible times as the private corporate criminal world government openly establishes itself. Now, before I get into the fall of Barack Obama and what could be the political fall of Rick Perry before he ever hatched out on the national stage, and break down what happened at the the latest Republican debate with Herman Cain winning and a lot more. And the Miami paper has the headline here. Let me just give it to you because it's amazing. Rick Perry in deep trouble. That's the Miami Herald headline. Before I get into that and the establishment dinosaur corpse, zombie, walking corpse media, that there's a big survey out today that the mainstream media is furthering and accelerating its hemorrhaging of viewers and readers. We crossed the Rubicon 2.5 years ago, according to a bunch of big university studies, where the internet now has more viewers, more listeners, more readers going there for news than all of the mainstream media combined, even with their internet footprint. Alternative is bigger than them. But that hemorrhaging has only accelerated as they continue to try to prop up people like Rick Perry. Here's the cover of Time magazine, The Rise of Rick Perry. So and quick fall if we get the word out on this guy. Same thing with the other Ken doll, pretty boy, Mr. Carbon Tax, Mr. Obamacare, Mitt Romney. If we get the word out about what they really support, it's over for them. And you notice people are waking up now in a few weeks to these people instead of taking a few years like Obama, or 6, 7 years with George W. Bush, or 7.5 years to wake up to Bill Clinton being a con artist. People are waking up to the game that The Who has talked about. You know, I was driving in today listening to 93.7 KLBJ, the local rock station, and listened to the Who song, Won't Get Fooled Again. And this was something, this was music that came out in 1971, and they're talking about the left-right paradigm. They're talking about the scams. They're talking about how It's a two-party dictatorship. But finally, decades and decades later, more and more people, well, Congress has a 9% approval rating, the lowest in history. There is a political realignment happening. There is a great awakening. But just because you're awake doesn't mean you know exactly where you are. You ever woken up in the middle of the night in a hotel room and you wonder where you are? It takes you a few seconds to go, oh, I'm out of town. You know, I'm in New Mexico, or I'm in California, or I'm in New York, or I'm in South Texas. I'm in Illinois. You're not at home, you know, back in Kansas anymore. And it's the same thing. People are awake now, but that doesn't mean they figured out exactly what's going on. But at least now they'll listen and understand this global criminal takeover. I mean, listen to the words from Won't Get Fooled Again by The Who. First, maybe if you're younger or older and don't know who The Who are, I should play a clip of this song to remind you. Here it is. You've heard that before. All right, we're going to come back after the break and actually play some of the pertinent sections from the piece about meet the new boss, same as the old boss, won't get fooled again. But I wanted to remind you of The Who. By the way, Jaron was down at his favorite place to watch soccer on television. You don't mind if I say where you go watch soccer, do you, Jaron? He loves it. Fado's down there. He's always trying to get me to go down there. And guess who was there? Robert Plant. And I almost could strangle Jaron for not going up with his iPhone, his producer phone, and shooting a quick interview with Robert Plant. Nobody was bugging him in there. Most people didn't even know who he was. And I guess he owns one of the teams. His team was losing, the team he was watching. And Jaron didn't go over and talk to Robert Plant. And then Jaron pointed out, well, my iPhone's so old, the producer iPhone is so old, it doesn't shoot video. So I have to get a new producer phone. But side issue that got brought up. I heard Jeff Ward on Local 590 AM this week saying that he talked to a cab driver who had Robert Plant in his car. I don't know why Robert Plant's here in town, and quite frankly, at the end of the day, it's a great musician, but I really don't care. I just brought it up because we're talking about rock and roll. Listen to the words of this song before I come back and get into what's really happening with the 2012 presidential campaign. Obama, Rick Perry, all of them. They're all in the same camp. Different parties, same camp. Only one guy stands outside of it. But listen to this. These words. Won't get fooled again, The Who. We'll be fighting in the streets with our children at our feet, and the morals that they worship will be gone. And the men who spurred us on sit in judgment of all wrong. They decide, and the shotgun sings the song. Talking about revolution. I'll tip my hat to the new Constitution. I'll take a bow for the new revolution, smile and grin at the change all around me. The hope and change is 1971. Pick up my guitar and play just like yesterday, and I'll get on my knees and pray. We won't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again. Change it had to come. We knew it all along, but we were liberated from the fall, that's all. But the world looks just the same, and history ain't changed because the banners, they were all flown in the last war. They're always fighting the last war, not the new con game. You think of a dictator as Hitler or Stalin and Mao, not as a bureaucracy, not as a banking cartel. I'll tip my hat to the new Constitution, take a bow for the new revolution, smile and grin at the change all around me, pick up my guitar and play just like yesterday, and I'll get on my knees and pray. We won't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again. No, no. By the way, I have confirmed from folks that most of The Who are huge fans of the show. And if you're listening out there, you ought to come on the show. Of course, there's even folks in rock bigger than The Who I've talked to who are listeners but won't come on. Continuing here, I'll move myself and my family aside if we happen to be left half alive. I'll get all my papers and smile at the sky, for I know that the hypnotized never die. Do you? And it doesn't sound as good when I'm speaking it. Sorry, folks. There's nothing in the street looks any different to me, and the slogans are replaced by the by, and the parting on the left is now the parting on the right, and the beards have all grown longer overnight. I'll tip my hat to the new Constitution. I'll take a bow for the new revolution, smile and grin at the change all around me, pick up my guitar and play just like yesterday. Then I'll get on my knees and pray we don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again. No, no. Yeah.